In this video, I'm going to show you how to convert these 3 separate customer datasets into a clean, searchable customer relationship management system in Excel, enabling you to extract customer details and get a list of your active leads and opportunities that automatically updates. And I'll be using one underrated feature, custom data types in Power Query. It's super easy, no coding, no add-ins or third-party apps, just Excel for Microsoft 365. Let's get started. In this file, I've been tracking my customer details. Then in a separate sheet, I have my customer interactions with information like the date, channel, topic, and outcome. And lastly, I have a list of opportunities with information about the stage, value, and expected close date. And while my data is all stored in Excel tables and in the same file, it doesn't have to be in tables, and it could even be in separate files or a database for this technique, so keep that in mind. I'm going to close this file and we'll build the CRM in a new file that I have set up here ready to go. On the Data tab, I'm going to use Power Query to get the data from file. Remember, it's in an Excel workbook, but you choose the appropriate connector for your data. Browse to your file location, that's mine there, and import it. My data's in multiple tables, so I'm going to check the box to select multiple. You can see in the list we have the tables followed by the sheets. You can get the data from either, but since mine's in proper tables, I'll grab those just to make it easy for Power Query. And then in the bottom right, I'm going to click Transform Data. This opens the Power Query editor, and I can go ahead and clean the data if I need to. Mine's all ready to go, so I'm going to go ahead and create the custom data types. So I'm on the customers table. I'm going to Control A to select all the columns, and then right click, Create Data Type. I'll name it DT Customers, and in the display column I can choose from any of the columns. I'm going to leave it at the customer ID and click OK. So there's my data type. You can see it's collapsed all the columns into one. If I click on one of these, you can see at the bottom there's all the records for that customer. Let's rename this query Q Customers. It's just going to help me differentiate between the query name and the data type. All right, let's rinse and repeat for the other tables. Right click, Create Data Type. This one is DT Opportunity, and we'll leave the display column as Opportunity ID. Click OK, rename the query Q Opportunities, and we'll repeat for the interactions. We'll call this one DT Interactions. Click OK, and rename the query Q Interactions. So with that done, I've got my 3 data types. I can close and load 2. And here I could choose to load it into a table, but because I have 3 queries and I want them in a specific place, I'm going to go with only create a connection and then click OK. And then I've got a sheet ready to go called CRM data that I'm going to pop them onto. So I'm going to right click and go into load to, and we're going to put this in a table. This one can go in column A. The next one can go in column G, so I'll change the load to a table. It's going on the existing worksheet in cell G1. And this one can go in column N. Load to, table, OK. Now I have my 3 data sets compressed into custom data types, and I can click on the icon to the left. It opens the card, and here I can see the underlying data for this customer ID. Likewise for opportunities and interactions. You can also click on the plus button here and you can add fields to this table. For example, I could add the industry information if I wanted to see it on the face of the table. I'm going to get rid of that column because we're going to reference this data using formulas to build our report. Speaking of which, let's take a look at the completed report to see what's required. You can see I need to extract the customer ID, name, industry, country status, and email, and then I need to gather a list of the interactions for that customer. The customer ID is in a drop-down list, so we'll need to build that, and then the rest is built with formulas. Right, let's go back to the demo file, and on the CRM customer sheet, we'll build the report. In the interest of time, I'm just going to paste in the labels. Remember, the customer ID is going to be a drop-down list. And because my data is in a table on a separate sheet, I'm going to define a name for this list of customers. And that's because data validation lists don't accept table structured references. So selecting the column on the Formulas tab, I'm going to define name. we'll leave it as DT customers, and you can see it's referencing the query table Q customers and the column DT customers. I'll click OK, and then back on my report page, I'm going to go to the Data tab, Data Validation. Here I want a list, and in the source, if you can't remember the name you just defined, press the F3 key, it brings up the list of names. You can double click on the name, it pastes it in, click OK, and now we have a list of our customers. Perfect. I can click on the card here as well to get a preview of it, but I'm going to reference this field in formulas to extract the name, industry, and so on. So equals, reference the cell containing my data type, and then to extract data from a specific field, I can use the dot notation to get a list of fields. I want the first name, tab, and because the first name and last name are separate fields, I'm going to concatenate a space and then reference the data type again to grab the last name. Press enter and we get the first and last name. However, if no customer ID is selected here, we're going to get an error in this formula. So instead of that, let's wrap it in if error. And if there's an error, we'll give the user a prompt to say select customer ID. Close parentheses on if error, and that's done. Let's repeat for the industry. So if error, I'm going to reference the customer ID here, and I want the industry, comma, and if there's an error, let's just return a blank. I'm just going to F4 to absolute reference C4, and then I can just double click and copy that down, and then edit. Instead of industry here, we want country, and instead of industry here, we want customer status, and this one is the email. Done. And if you want to see the data for a different customer, simply select it from the list and it updates automatically. If you're finding this useful and you want to go deeper, I've got a full course on Power Query and other powerful Excel tools. These courses are packed with real-world projects and have helped thousands of professionals build Excel tools they can actually use. You can see some of the top reviews on screen, and if you want to join them, the links are in the description and pinned comment. Next, we need to get a list of the interactions. If we go back to the CRM data, you can see the interactions are in a separate data type. If we click on the card, you can see this data type also has the customer ID, so we can use that to cross-reference the tables. Let me go back to our report, and I'm going to just paste in the headings in the interest of time. To extract the interaction ID, I'm going to use the filter function, and it's going to reference the interactions table and the data type interactions column. Next, I need to insert the criteria. And for that, I need to reference this table again, but I need to drill down and get the customer ID. So let's dot customer ID. So where the customer ID equals the customer ID here. Now I can't just reference cell C4 because this contains the data type with all the fields. I need to dot drill down and extract the customer ID. So I'm looking up the customer ID in my interactions table, and where it matches the customer ID in my report here, it's going to return the interactions for that customer. Comma, if there's no records found, I'm going to return the text, no records. Close parentheses on filter. Press enter and filter returns a spilled array of interactions for this customer. Let's choose a different one that has a few more interactions, and then we can populate the remaining fields. Now they all come from the interactions table, so I can reference this cell here, dot, and drill down and get the date. But remember, we want to handle errors, so let's wrap it in if error, comma, if there's any errors, we'll just return blank. And let's also reference the spilled array here so that we don't have to drag this formula down. It's going to fill down as many rows as there are interaction IDs. Let's also F4 to absolute that reference. It's just going to allow me to copy this across, and we'll go in and edit. Instead of date here, we want the channel, and instead of date here, we want the topic, and here we want the outcome. And that's the customer details table done. Of course, this is just an example of how you can work with custom data types to create a CRM report. You can modify it to suit your data and needs. Next is the active leads report, which contains the opportunities data. Again, we're combining two data types, the customer information and the opportunities. which requires some new techniques. Let me copy these headings and then we'll go back to the demo file, and on this sheet we're going to build the report. To get the list of active customers, I can use filter again. We're going to reference the customers query, and we're going to extract the customers where dot the customer status equals active. Close double quotes, and if there's no active records, we'll return the text, no active leads. Close double quotes, close filter, and there's our list of active customers. Now we can prove that they're all active by extracting the customer status from the data type. So equals B5 hash dot, and we want the customer status. Press enter, we get active. Of course, we want to wrap that in if error. In case there's no data, we'll return a blank. Likewise, we can get the industry, so if error, we'll reference the data type, hash for the spilled array, dot, we want the industry, and if there's no records, we'll return blank. And then for the opportunities, because they're in a separate table, I can use XLOOKUP to extract a list of them. So I'm going to look up the customer ID here, and I want to reference the spilled array, dot, what am I looking up? The customer ID, comma, where am I looking it up? Well, I want to go to the opportunities table, and I want to drill down to the customer ID, and where that matches, I'm going to return the list of opportunities, comma, if there's no records, we'll return a blank. Close parentheses on XLOOKUP, and there's my list of opportunities. So you can see these ones here don't have any data, and this one do, and so on. Now it's important here that you always use the hash here to reference this spilled array. That way these formulas automatically fill down in line with this data. So for the opportunity name, we can extract it from the opportunity ID where there is one. So we're going to equals if error. We're referencing this range here, hash for the spilled array, dot. Now it's not bringing up the IntelliSense because there's no opportunity ID in the first field. However, let's go with it anyway. We know that this field is called opportunity name. And if there's no opportunity, we're going to return a blank. Close parentheses, and it spills the results. Let's go ahead and we'll F4 to absolute this, and then I'll copy it across and edit accordingly. So instead of opportunity name, we want the stage. And instead of opportunity name here, we want the value. All right, let's format that column with comma separators and no decimals. There we go. So now that we have the data in this table, we can add filters. And for example, we might want to filter for a specific industry, perhaps technology, or we could filter based on the stage or the value, etc. Let's clear the filters and look at how we can update our reports with one click. So I'll open up the source data file again, and let's say we have a new opportunity. We'll call it OPP 3040. It's for customer 1008, and it's to evolve B2B convergence. It's a proposal. It's worth $26,941. We're expecting it to close on the 19th of August. That's updated. The file is saved. Let's close it. We've got customer 1008 here. Keep an eye on it, because all I need to do to update all of my reports in this file is click the Refresh All button on the Data tab of the ribbon. You can see the queries are updating, and just like that, my report is up to date and includes the new opportunity. So you can see once you set up your CRM reports, there's no maintenance required to update them. Of course, this is just one use for custom data types. You could use them to create a product database, employee database, inventory systems, and much more. If you'd like to try them out, you can download the example file and data from the link in the video description. And since you're into building reusable tools in Excel, don't miss this video where I show you how to create an automated work schedule that updates itself. It's the same idea. Less manual work, more control. I'll see you there.